I let my cheating business partner think we were still friends while I secretly bought his house. 6 months ago, I discovered that my business partner of 8 years had been siphoning money from our shared accounts, manipulating invoices, and basically stealing from me while pretending to be my closest friend. The betrayal hit me harder than losing my first love in college, because this guy had been at my wedding, held my newborn daughter, and shared countless late nights building what I thought was our dream together. The discovery happened on a Tuesday morning when I was reviewing quarterly reports and noticed some discrepancies that made my stomach drop. Numbers that should have matched were off by thousands, and when I dug deeper, I found a pattern of redirected payments that had been going on for over 2 years. My hands were shaking as I printed out evidence, and I remember sitting in my car afterward, just staring at the papers and feeling like someone had punched me in the gut. Instead of confronting him immediately, something inside me snapped into a different mode entirely. Maybe it was the years of watching legal dramas, or maybe it was pure rage transformed into cold calculation, but I decided to play the long game. I started acting like nothing had changed, maintaining our usual friendship while secretly documenting everything and planning my response. The hardest part was pretending everything was normal when we grabbed lunch together, or when he complained about his mortgage payments. He had this habit of running his hands through his hair when he was stressed, and I found myself studying his every gesture, looking for signs of guilt that I had somehow missed before. Meanwhile, I was quietly consulting with attorneys and forensic accountants, building an airtight case against him. During this time, I learned that he was struggling financially more than I had realized. His house, which he had bought at the peak of the market 3 years ago, was becoming a burden. He mentioned several times how the payments were killing him, especially with his wife not working and their 2 kids in private school. What he didn't know was that I had already started researching the property and discovered he was behind on payments. The first major twist came when I found out through my attorney that his house was actually going into foreclosure. The irony was almost too perfect. He had been stealing from me to try to save a house he was losing anyway. I saw an opportunity that felt like the universe was aligning for justice, and I started making moves to position myself as a potential buyer. Working with a real estate agent who specialized in foreclosure properties, I began the process of getting pre-approved for a loan to buy his house. The whole situation felt surreal, like I was living in some kind of revenge thriller. I had to be incredibly careful not to let anything slip during our daily interactions, especially when he would joke about needing to find a cheaper place to live. The foreclosure process moved faster than I expected, and within 6 weeks, I was able to make an offer through my agent. The bank accepted it quickly since I was paying cash from a business loan I had secured against my own assets. The entire transaction was handled through intermediaries, so his name never appeared on any paperwork he might see. Meanwhile, I was still gathering evidence of his theft, which by now totaled nearly $80,000. My attorney advised me to let the criminal case build slowly, while I focused on the civil recovery. The psychological pressure of maintaining our friendship while knowing what I knew was exhausting, but it also gave me a strange sense of power. The day I officially became the owner of his house was one of the most bizarre experiences of my life. I drove by the property that evening and sat in my car, looking at the windows where I knew he was probably having dinner with his family, completely unaware that I now owned the roof over their heads. The feeling was a mixture of satisfaction and something darker that I'm not entirely proud of. The second major twist happened when I discovered that he had been planning to ask me for a personal loan to help with his mortgage. He had been working up the courage for weeks, and I could see him getting more nervous around me, clearing his throat a lot and starting conversations that he couldn't seem to finish. When he finally approached me about it, I had to use every ounce of self-control to act surprised and concerned. I told him I would think about it and get back to him, knowing full well that I was already planning to serve him with both criminal charges and civil papers within the next month. The look of hope in his eyes when I said I would consider helping him was almost too much to bear, and I went home that night feeling like I was losing pieces of my soul in this elaborate game of chess. As the foreclosure date approached, I started noticing changes in his behavior. He became more distracted during our meetings, checking his phone constantly, and I caught him on several calls that he would quickly end when I walked into the room. His wife started calling him more frequently, and I could tell from his side of the conversations that the stress was affecting their entire household. The third twist came when I realized that he had been borrowing money from other mutual friends and business associates, using our company's reputation as collateral for personal loans. This revelation made me angrier than the original theft, because now he was potentially damaging relationships that I had spent years building. I started quietly reaching out to these people to gauge the extent of the damage. 3 weeks before the foreclosure was set to finalize, I finally decided to confront him about the theft. I had all my evidence organized, my attorney on standby, and a plan for how to handle the business dissolution. The confrontation itself was anticlimactic compared to all the buildup. He barely tried to deny it once I showed him the documentation, and mostly just sat there looking defeated. His reaction was a combination of shame, anger, and desperation that I had never seen from him before. He kept saying that he had always planned to pay it back, that it was just temporary, and that he couldn't believe I had been investigating him like a criminal. When I told him about the civil and criminal charges I was filing, he actually laughed bitterly and said he had nothing left to lose anyway. That's when I delivered the final revelation, that I had bought his house and would be taking possession in 5 days. The look on his face shifted through about 6 different emotions in the span of 10 seconds, ending with a kind of hollow recognition that I had outplayed him completely. He didn't say anything for almost a minute, just stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. The aftermath was messier than I had anticipated. His wife called me crying, begging me to reconsider and give them more time to figure something out. Their kids had to change schools, and I heard through mutual friends that the whole family was staying with her parents while they looked for a rental they could afford. Part of me felt terrible about the collateral damage, but the larger part felt justified. The criminal case moved forward, and he eventually pleaded guilty to embezzlement charges. The civil case was settled out of court, with him agreeing to a payment plan that would take him about 15 years to complete. Our business was dissolved, and I had to rebuild my client base from scratch. But I felt like I had reclaimed my dignity and sent a clear message about the consequences of betraying trust. 6 months later, I still drive by what used to be his house occasionally, which I ended up selling to a young family who reminded me of myself 20 years ago. The whole experience changed me in ways I'm still processing, and I'm not sure if I'm proud of how I handled it or disturbed by how calculating I became. Sometimes I wonder if there was a better way to handle the situation, but then I remember the feeling of discovering those doctored invoices and the months of lies that followed. The strangest part is that I sometimes miss the friendship we had, or at least the friendship I thought we had. There were genuinely good times and shared experiences that feel tainted now, but I can't completely erase the positive memories. I've learned that betrayal doesn't just destroy the future, it recontextualizes the past in ways that make you question everything you thought you knew about someone. These days, I'm more careful about business partnerships and have implemented systems that make it much harder for anyone to manipulate finances without detection. I also find myself studying people more carefully, looking for signs of deception that I might have missed before. It's probably made me a better business person, but it's definitely made me a more cynical person overall. The house sale ended up being profitable, which felt like a small victory in the larger scheme of things. I used the profits to start a new venture that's been more successful than our original business ever was. Sometimes I wonder if his betrayal, as painful as it was, actually pushed me toward opportunities I never would have pursued otherwise. Looking back, I realized that my response was probably excessive and unnecessarily cruel, but I can't honestly say I regret it. The theft was a violation of trust that deserved consequences, and the fact that I was able to turn his own poor financial decisions against him felt like poetic justice. Whether that makes me a strategic genius or a vindictive person is something I'll probably debate with myself for years to come. The whole experience taught me that the people closest to you can sometimes be the ones most capable of devastating betrayal, and that sometimes the best response to being wronged is patience, planning, and the willingness to play a longer game than your opponent realizes they're in.